house, in this room, in this house.
I'm talking wop, 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 wet ass pussy. Talking wop, 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 wet and gushy. Do you see this? Do you see this battle wound? Probably not. It's just a speck. I got some blood drawn today and I lived. I started freaking out a little bit. I got a little woozy. I had to have some apple juice. I am thrilled to be alive in the same fleeting cosmic moment where drawing your blood is the best way to check up on your health, but it's a necessary horror in this world. Get that blood panel done that you've been putting off. Go to the dentist. Get that colonoscopy. Anyways, the origins of the Skinamarink song are a little bit of a mystery. If you didn't know, it's a nursery rhyme. My mom used to sing the Skinamarink version to me, a little D in there. It's believed to have originated in the 1910 Broadway show The Echo, and since it's basically gibberish, the title has had different spellings throughout the years. It's appeared in pop culture many times over its century-long lifespan, but never in a viral horror movie. Kyle Edward Ball has taken the good name of Skinamarink and soiled it. Soiled it! I'm just kidding, that's literally what old songs are for, to slow them down and lay them over horror movie trailers. If you enjoy goofy observations of horror pop culture, then maybe you've noticed that you've come to the right place. It's kind of my specialty if you haven't noticed. So click subscribe and the notification bell and you'll always be the first to know what crazy thing I say next. Today is all types of crazy because we're talking about Skinamarink in its entirety. We're going to talk about Kyle Edward Ball's career leading up to Skinamarink. We're going to talk about the fact that the movie leaked and what influence that had on the release. We'll talk fun facts, and I'll also bring up interview snippets to give you more insight. I'll share my spoiler-free thoughts on the movie and who I think should go out and see it. Then we'll get into spoilers because I think I have to with this movie. I'll give my interpretation of the movie prior to researching the plot, and then I'll kind of compare that. I think I'll also include some comparisons to the short film Heck, as well as some other fan theories, because a lot of them are really interesting. So if that sounds good to you, then kick back, grab a drink, grab a snack, let's get into it. First of all, why am I reviewing Skinamarink? You might be asking. I do like maybe 10-ish solo reviews throughout the course of a year in favor of doing other series on my channel, but sometimes a franchise movie comes out and I need to be part of the discourse. Sometimes the marketing is so fun and unique that I really want to talk about all the culture surrounding the movie too. And sometimes a movie comes out that is just bizarre enough to warrant me rambling for 30 minutes about it. Kyle Edward Ball said, I am going to make a movie that is so weird. So let's go through the timeline of this movie coming into existence. Kyle, can I call you Kyle? The writer, director, and editor, and probably producer of this movie got his start here on YouTube. This article claims that his story arguably begins in 2017 when he filmed a 4-minute video visualizing a nightmare he had in his youth and posted it to his YouTube page. So he started about 6 years ago and since then has been growing momentum. His channel is called Bite-Sized Nightmares, and not only does he take the nightmares from his audience to convert to short films, but he also does like 3-hour-long videos of lo-fi horror ambiance. Lovely. But the precursor to Skinamarink was a short film called Heck. It's essentially the bite-sized version of Skinamarink and comes in at 28 minutes long.
I had, through my YouTube work, found that people were responding to the stuff I was doing, so I leaned into that. But I think unintentionally, they were telling me I'm enjoying these videos because I have to pay attention. And a lot of stuff in this movie was through osmosis, right? Leaning into feedback and reception.
After making the short as well, he felt really confident for the feature because he felt like he worked his way up in good increments. Oh, and I forgot to mention that Heck was made actually as a proof of concept for Skinamarink. Something else that inspired Kyle is old cinema. I guess we have this in common. He also grew up watching old classic monster movies, but he always wondered why they stopped being made.
Ever since I was a little kid, I've always liked old movies because movies from different eras evoke different feelings and emotions and ideas in my mind. Even as a little kid, I thought, oh, how come they don't make old movies today? How come they changed, right? And growing up, I thought, I'd like to make an old movie today.
I have long thought the same thing, and I swear I'm not like a copycat goober, but I have always wanted to make a classic 80s style slasher. Shitty handheld POV cinematography, or maybe I'd get a Panaglide like in Halloween. Shoot it on film, no exceptions, 16mm or nothing. But anyway, he copied the analog format of the 70s, both with the video and audio. They had only $15,000 to make this movie, which they crowdfunded, I believe probably from his YouTube audience, which is the same budget as the original Paramount Paranormal Activity movie. It was shot in Kyle Edward Ball's childhood home, much like Oren Peli shot Paranormal Activity in his own home. The movie only took a week to shoot because the real challenge was in editing. They shot it on a great 4K camera, if you can believe that, which made shooting really easy because they could underlight the scenes and it wouldn't stress the camera out too much. But then with editing, he had to go back and add all the visual noise. It's a very grainy looking film, and he also got really jiggy with the audio as well.
As far as the bed of the audio, for each scene, I have hiss and hum, so a hiss track and a hum track. And for each shot, I would use it as kind of room tone. So if I wanted to imply, oh, it's a few hours later or we're in a different mood, different room, I would literally use it as room tone and just play with that instead of actual room tone. I may have spent as much time actual cutting or getting the look as I did for audio.
And I think they were able to fiddle with it so much because the characters are rarely, if ever, shown on screen. This is partially attributed to budget, but is also a style choice. It comes from his days making shorts on YouTube when he would have to get creative when he wouldn't have actors. So you'll see a similar shooting style in a lot of his shorts, but it does make for a very eerie effect. We'll get into more of those thoughts when I get into my spoiler-free thoughts on the movie, but I also want to talk about the marketing of this movie. Most of the marketing ended up kind of being unintentional because, like I said, this movie got leaked.
Me, Shudder, IFC, and Bayview Entertainment were not naive. We know eventually a film is going to get pirated. The 3 weeks after the leak happened were horrible. I thought contracts were going to be ripped up, which in retrospect I found out was not the case. And it was also a hard thing to compartmentalize all the different feelings I was having. People loving your movie, but feeling like they're hurting you.
In the Exclaim article that I mentioned earlier, they claim that this first blew up because of a TikTok. Kyle said the movie's not even out yet and I'm at the center of a Twitter controversy, but it ruined my Halloween. I had never even considered the negative implications of a movie leaking early because in my mind, I'm like, people want to see this movie so bad, they're willing to watch it illegally and give it free press, basically. Luckily, that was pretty much the case for Skinamarink, but the opposite can also happen. Sometimes it can kill a release because, I mean, obviously I can see how when people watch it illegally, they're not paying to go see it. Kyle had a lot of conflicted feelings about this because on the one hand, people were loving it, it was great, but he also felt horribly because, like he said, he was scared that contracts were gonna get ripped up. It was kind of a double-edged coin. However, I think that we're starting to learn again how important viral marketing is. We just talked about this with Megan and Smile. People were already starting to make Skinamarink memes, and it was developing an online cult following before it was even released. And who consumes memes? Gen Z, baby.
I'm curious about the audience that Skinamarink found. Who are they?
Gen Z has latched onto it in a lot of ways. Not everyone in Gen Z, they're not a hive mind by any means.
Studios should take notes that my generation is partially responsible for the success that you're seeing because of our genius memeability. So of course, we're gonna go through some of those. This is the best part. Going through the Skinamarink memes. As you might recall, I was dancing along to the WAP remix that somebody made for this movie. There's some hoes in this house, you know? This is one of my favorites.
I say we take this party back to my house where there's no doors or windows.
If you get it, you get it. You know, you might have had to see the movie for that one. Oh, I love this one. It's the iconic iCarly flashing scene. Someone said walking into the Skinamarink house. Oh, people are bringing back ancient memes for this movie, but it just shows how timeless these memes are and how memeable Skinamarink surprisingly is. You guys remember this video? Let me know.
Oh, shit!
A ghost!
You motherfucking ghost!
Oh, one of my favorite things on Twitter that people do is when they say, like, Skinamarink spoilers without context. Or this one, they literally just posted the pictures, and it's like The Simpsons. Or this one, oh my god, this one from Drake and Josh. If you've seen the movie, you know how funny this is. Or this person that's warning you good people not to watch Skinamarink High. I know someone that did, though, and we'll talk about that very soon. Or people just sharing their general experience, like this guy, Skinamarink had me gripping for dear life. Look at that popcorn thing. I relate. Oh, and everybody has latched on to this goofy little toy phone from the movie, which I think is hilarious. There's a lot of memes about him. Or her, or them, you know. Other people saying that you shouldn't be high to watch this movie. Should have never smoked that shit, now I'm in this house. Me when Skinamarink. Someone else used that same picture. I don't even know what that's from, but it's also a Matrix reference. Some of them are really deep fried. I don't know that people older than like 25 would really get this one. If you do, that's two thumbs up. 2 thumbs up. I don't want to have to explain the meme. Like, you'd probably get it if you've seen the movie, but majority of the movie is just shots of like walls and the ceiling and stuff, so it's a good joke. See, I told you, people now, they hate their little Fisher-Price phones. So sad. Put this Kevin in the Skinamarink house and see what happens. Yeah, so the main character, the 4-year-old in Skinamarink, his name is Kevin. Home Alone reference! The ones of the phone, I don't know why, are so funny to me because I didn't really have the same experience hating the phone in this movie, but these memes make me crack up. I've had enough of this, dude. Gonna be so many babies named Skinamarink next year. Ugh. Have you ever met a kid named Hermione? I have. It's real. You might see a little baby Skinamarink coming down the lane, coming to your doorstep. I don't know what I'm saying. My review of Skinamarink. Fuck the Fisher-Price phone. All my homies hate the Fisher-Price phone. This poor little toy. Like this one too. Someone made the Fisher-Price phone cunty. Why? In this house. I think we just have a couple more here. Someone said Skinamarink. Great SpongeBob reference. They edited in Squidward's house. Love it. And then just a few tweets from Kyle Edward Ball himself because I thought they were funny. So he identifies LGBTQ+, I don't know if gay, bi, whatever, who cares? He said, well, I was bound to get this message eventually. The absolute irony, respecting women, peace and love and happiness. Yeah, great job, buddy. You're really paying that forward. And then I'll end with this one because this one was cute. His mom texted him, so you got a 92% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Isn't that good? He said, yes, but it's still early. And she's like, geez, take the win. And he said, I was right though, but like, just, you know, take the win, man. I agree with your good old mom. She knows what she's talking about. Anyway, that'll do it for the memes. I'm sure there will be a lot more once the movie releases on Shudder, but those were just some of my favorites. But the main point with all of this is that when a movie is memeable, it's successful. And horror somehow manages to be good while being memeable. I don't know if Marvel can say the same thing. Horror fans are just funnier and more talented, I guess. I don't know. But according to this Bloody Disgusting article, as of January 19th, Skinamarink has made over $1 million. So yet again, I'm proven right that movies are made in the marketing. I mean, they have to be good movies too, but if you look at Megan, not always. With Skinamarink, it's definitely a combo of the two. However, none of this is to say that I condone watching movies illegally, especially when they're made by such small indie artists. I paid to go see this in a theater. I recommend that you do the same. Unless you're gonna wait and watch it on Shudder, that's cool too. I hope we're all very happy for his success. I love to see my fellow gays winning. This has also landed him in some pretty important conversations. Apparently he's met with A24, Neon, New Line Cinema, among others. My best bet is on A24. I feel like that would be a match made in heaven. However, he doesn't want to jump immediately into a huge budget production, which I respect his reasoning for.
I don't know if I'd be good at doing a big budget horror movie. I don't know if I'm ready for that yet. I want to do things in steps. So my next movie is going to be bigger budget, but not like $50 million, right? I like working in smaller movies. I think the audience can intuit sincerity. I wanted to have already had started writing the follow-up, but because the release of the movie was expedited so quickly, I just haven't had time. And now I'm getting the sophomore jitters of like, and I never had this problem with Skinamarink because people didn't really have any expectations, right? Now I'm conscious of, oh, this is my follow-up. This is my one to prove that the first one wasn't an accident.
His reasoning seems maybe twofold. On the one hand, yes, low budget sets are absolutely the vibe because everyone is there because they genuinely want to be there. It's not motivated by a paycheck. It means they all believe in the project. Like, I love making shorts with my friends. It's the best. But also he's very self-aware of his experience level, and the bigger the budget, the bigger the flop would be if it didn't do well. So I say let's collectively not project any expectations and just let him keep making his weird shit and we can go woo from the sidelines. Were you going woo when you saw Skinamarink? Let's talk about the response to this movie. When I left the theater, I actually had no idea how I felt about the movie. Even after reflecting, I'm like, I don't think I'd ever want to watch this movie again, but I feel like I would need to just to get a fucking grip. To understand your fears is to control them, maybe that's the vibe inhabiting my body. The response to Skinamarink also doesn't really seem to have much middle ground. I've mostly seen people either loving it or hating it. People are either like, this reduced me to my inner child and I was crying, shaking with pure terror, and other people were like, why are you guys literally crying at images of a ceiling? Both valid, in my opinion. That second group of people also tends to complain that there's no plot, really, just the experimental vibes, which is not entirely true, but it's also not like categorically false. And then there are some people who love the movie, which bless them, but they're saying Skinamarink has no plot? Where? I'm so confused why people are confused about this movie. It's not a good look, let me explain. Skinamarink throws basically every convention out the window. It's an experimental lo-fi horror film. By design, it's not supposed to be understandable in a conventional way, because this movie is very unwilling to compromise on that front. It's so in your face, saying, I am not for everyone. Just stop trying to be the cool guy that's like, I don't know about you dumbasses, but I understood the plot on the first go round. You look dumb for thinking you look smart by saying that. It's also just like one of the worst kinds of gatekeeping. Like, you guys just don't get it. Okay, so maybe help them out then, damn. Now, what everyone in our solar system, potentially the galaxy, has been waiting for, my opinion. I'm mixed because there's a lot about this that I love, but there is one pretty major negative that I have. First of all, let me set the stage for my viewing experience. Let me paint you a little picture. I was sober, driving my friend who had taken an edible. Yeah, if you've seen the movie, woof, right? There was a man in our theater who had his dogs out, and they were up on like a few chairs next to me. Toes and all. No shoes, not even socks. And this guy kept falling asleep and he would start snoring. So naturally I'd look back because I'm like, what is this noise? And then his own snores kept waking him up. And so then he'd kind of like jerk awake and he would look right at me. We'd make a very intimate eye contact. I don't know why my nosy ass just can't mind my business, because I didn't learn my lesson. It kept happening over and over. And I was like, why doesn't this guy just like go home and go to bed? But I do relate to him because take this as a negative or a positive, this movie made me very sleepy. Yes, it's insanely slow, but I really felt hypnotized. And my buddy who was off, I don't know, like 10 milligrams of THC or something, he told me that he was just locked the fuck in. So on my next viewing, I think I really want to be high, but I worry for my sanity. I was so immersed too by the style of the film because it's so grainy that you can hardly see anything, which seems counterintuitive, but I became really engaged by trying to see whatever was gonna come out of the dark. Being in the theater also heavily influenced my experience because when it was loud, it would be so overstimulating. I would have to plug my ears, but I felt so enveloped by the constant static and the darkness. It was a crazy feeling. However, the moments of absolute dread and terror I felt were kind of few and far between. I think this movie could have remained as a short film, though according to Kyle Edward Ball, his original cut was 2 hours long. They shortened it to 100 minutes to meet festival requirements. I would have gone ahead and kept this as a tight little short film myself, but I have seen people that felt terrified throughout the entire runtime. Those 100 minutes personally felt like about 3 hours of my life, but I can't really get into why that is without spoiling it, and also it's intentional. This movie elicited a physical reaction from me. I was jumping back in my chair, I was clenching my fists, like I was looking through my fingers sometimes. I don't like the jump scares, but well done, they worked. Overall, in terms of what the movie wanted to accomplish, it was definitely successful. And my interpretation was actually pretty close to the plot breakdowns that you'll find online. So I weirdly actually do fall into a middle ground. I don't know how I would feel about it upon a second viewing. I could really see it going either way. Knowing how long it is and how thin the plot is, I feel like next time, also knowing the scares that are coming, I might be more bored. Or if I take a little edible or something maybe, then I might be even more entranced by it and I might love it even more and like give it a perfect rating. I truly don't know. So I gave it 3.5 stars because I still feel like the movie could have been as successful as it is without needing to feel like 3 hours of my life. So that to say, who do I think this movie is for? I know a lot of people have a very wide range of tastes, so don't take this personally, I'm just speaking very generally right now. I don't think this is for slasher fans, people who love to just turn their brain off and just be entertained and don't really like much else. Because for this one, you really need to be turned on. Not like that. Not like that. And also, don't listen to the crowd that's like, you just didn't get it, because it's not a super easily digestible film by design. If you're an artsy fart, this one is definitely for you. There are so many different avenues through which you can interpret this movie. I personally love discussing interpretation, so that side of me was well fed. But if you don't like a slow burn, oh, mama, turn and run. This one is not for you. I want to encourage people to get out of their comfort zone though and give this one a go. Maybe my recommendation has informed that you don't want to wanna pay to go see this in a theater and you'll wait to watch it on Shudder, and I love that for you. But people should give this one a chance. It's a really exciting example of something that's actually super fresh and different, and an example that audiences are willing to go see something this weird, and that it might kind of be the end of the theater monopoly that was going on for the past decade. The chokehold that Marvel had on theaters just last year. Remember that dystopian image of like 10,000 Doctor Strange screenings at one theater? Or the fact that Top Gun Maverick and No Way Home basically took up residence in theaters, like they basically moved in. No more! Time for more tiny, weird indie projects to come and randomly make $10 million. Shout out Terrifier 2, we love you, babe. Add Skinamarink to the list of indie features that prove that audiences are willing to give small artists and originality a chance. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I think that's all I can say without getting into my interpretation of the film, and of course that involves spoilers. Then I'll get into the actual plot of the movie, maybe where I wasn't totally correct. I might make some comparisons to Heck, the short film, and some other fan theories as well. So that being said, if you haven't seen the movie, you are no longer safe. Or if you want to keep watching because, like, you know, you don't want to have to watch this movie, then by all means, I suppose. My interpretation goes that we're following some little kids in a house that has no doors or windows. They've become trapped because their parents left, and now there's a demon after them. And my thoughts on how the analog style contributed to that is that it was a story being told from the perspective of a 4-year-old. Because if you think back to your memories as a 4-year-old, they're probably really fuzzy and not at all defined. Although I can think of one. When I was 4 years old, I was sleeping. It was the middle of the night, and I woke up and I was stuck between my bed and the wall. I was like this. For some reason, somehow in my sleep, I got stuck with my feet like trapped against my bed, and the back of my neck was like shoved against the wall. And I was just stuck there. I had to scream for help. That one's very clear. But anyway, my point is most memories from that age are not all that sharp, and I feel like this movie captured that really well. And this movie also has the same kind of undefined blurry quality as A Nightmare. So that was my very brief kind of interpretation of the film. I took it to be a demon haunting from the perspective of a 4-year-old. And now here is Kyle's brief synopsis of the film.
Skinamarink is a lo-fi experimental feature horror movie. It's about two very little kids who wake up in the middle of the night to discover that their dad is gone and all the doors and windows in their house have mysteriously vanished. They go to the living room, get some blankets, put on some cartoons, and chill for a bit. And after a while of being in the house alone, they discover that they may not actually be as alone as they think.
So for my first viewing, I felt pretty good about my understanding, but there's also a lot more going on with the plot than I even realized. My friend, remember the one that had taken the edible, he thought this movie was kind of all about parental abuse, and he didn't really pick up on the kind of demon vibe. He was thinking the dad was the one that was abusing them the whole time, and I think between the two of us, we had two of the best theories, and apparently we were both right.
At the end of the day, I just want them to have watched something that will stick with them, right? A horror movie that they'll be thinking of years from now. Whatever interpretation people have or whatever the movie makes them feel, that is the correct interpretation and the correct feeling, because it doesn't matter what I wanted them to feel or what I wanted them to interpret it as, because it's not my movie anymore. It's their movie, right?
So it's not that important that you fully understand the intended plot. He just wants you to remember it, and mission accomplished, my man. Speaking of what was memorable, do you want to know what moments almost made me poop my pants? There are a lot of tense moments in this movie, but few of them actually had me fear of losing my bodily functions. Come upstairs. Whew, what a scene. That sound design. According to an interview too, Kyle said that he wanted to create his own version of a room 237 scene from The Shining, and they're pretty equal for me. I think that I was probably more scared during Skinamarink, but it's been a while since I've seen The Shining, so I don't know, but listen to this.
I want to have my version of a room 237 scene. Some of the editing even leading up to that, I tried to reverse engineer the room 237 scene for timing. I think it's a fear too of like mom and dad are being funny.
What's maybe even spookier is that Kyle himself doesn't even really know what was going on in that scene. He said there are many parts of the movie where I have a set idea of what the monster is doing and what's happening to a person and why, and there are other parts where I don't even know the answer, like the look under the bed scene. I don't know where a lot of that came from. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? I don't even recall the last time I felt that much dread while watching a movie, and with that scene, I can see why my friend was kind of onto the whole parental abuse abuse angle, because I thought that was the dad sitting on the edge of the bed. I think it's meant to be. And I love the weird old-fashioned cartoon vibe of the fact that we never see the characters' faces. The ambiguity is something that I am so uncomfortable with. I'm also so uncomfortable with the malleability of children. Like, he told him to look under the bed and he just did. This reawakened my primal childhood fear of fearing whatever lurks in the shadows, in dark closets that are only open a crack, or whatever lies at the end of a dark hallway. This is why so many people were reverted back to their child self, because it preyed upon some of the very first fears that we ever have walking on this earth. Kyle said his biggest fears as a child were other children because they were mean, and the dark, which I feel you on that one. So I think that coupled with shooting in his own childhood home probably made this a far more personal experience. I don't know what scared me more, the audio design of the bones breaking in the closet, or when Kaylee was revealed to no longer have her facial features. I've talked about it. I know that everyone freaked out about the Fisher-Price little phone scare, but that one didn't hit me as much. Like, that one just felt like more of a jump scare. Its little glowing eyes in the dark, though, that was great, but that one, it didn't really stick with me as much. The bedroom scene, yes, but I would say most of all, the ending. I was so chilled by the dialogue from this demon. First of all, the disembodied voice that felt like it was echoing off the walls of my brain was a lot to handle, but the shit that he would say, oh my god. Kaylee didn't do as she was told, so I took her mouth. I love how this was done because, one, I've never seen a demon created this way, and two, because this felt more like how we would probably actually experience a demon. I don't like possession movies because it's all noise and it's all flashing lights, and I don't buy it. This purgatorial landscape with a demon that by all appearances seems completely incomprehensible to the human mind feels a lot more realistic to me. Because if any of us were ever to actually encounter a demon, I don't think it would just be chilling there sharpening its claws or something, you know? It would be an amorphous blob of a face in the dark telling us to go to sleep. It would be harsh voices thrown around the room telling us to stick a knife in our eye. Let's also talk about the time jump in the ending of the film because that's interesting too. Watching Heck is honestly what helped me piece this together, because watching the movie in the theater, I was like, pardon? In Heck, another unfathomable amount of time had passed. I think it was like 2,750 years, and then I was like, oh. From my understanding with that, I think that Kevin is actually in some sort of purgatory or hell. There's no doors, no windows. He's been there for an insane amount of time. There's stuff floating and sticking to the ceilings. The short film is even called Heck. It might as well be called Hell, but I think it's a clever name. And it's such a harsh ending. We know that Kevin survives that awful blood splatter scene, but also, does he really? He's stuck in a windowless and doorless house with no real understanding of what he's going through, and he's probably never getting out of there. That's pretty awful, man. Those are the biggest plot points that I wanted to go over, the ones with the biggest gut punch. Also, I don't have much to say about the whole picture moment at the end where we see the children whose faces are messed up. Like, I don't really know. I would just say that those are probably like the demon's past victims, maybe? What are your thoughts? Now let's just briefly go over some other fan theories before I wrap things up. Some people think that when Kevin was knocked down the stairs in the beginning of this movie, he slipped into a coma, and so this movie is about his experience in that state. I don't love that one because I don't really notice any kind of shift in the aesthetic of the movie after he falls, and so that one's kind of eh. But going along with that one, some people think that when he fell down the stairs, he actually died, which is much darker, but now that's why he's in this purgatory. Again, I would say the style doesn't really change, so that doesn't really track for me unless that was like intentional to not change the style, but that one probably does make the most sense. Some people, like my friend, probably think that his father was the one that pushed him down the stairs in the beginning, and that the whole movie is kind of an exploration of abuse, and I could be on board with that one, especially given what I said about this movie feeling like it was entirely from the perspective of a 4-year-old. I don't really remember what my family looked like when I was 4 years old, so I could get on board with the scary featureless face at the end being Kevin's dad. Though I don't know why Kevin would ask his own dad what his name is, although I guess some 4-year-olds like actually don't know because they just call them mom and dad. So that one's alright. At the end of the day, who fucking knows, right? I would love nothing more than to hear all your theories. Please put put them down below, but if you need to put a spoiler warning on there, then go ahead and do that. If you're curious about how I felt about this movie the day after I walked out of the theater when I was still like really in my feels about it, you can find that on Patreon. A huge thank you to these people who keep this channel funded. I would not be able to do YouTube full time without these lovely people, and as a thank you, I do 4 to 6 bonus videos every single month over on Patreon. It includes all my first reactions to new horror films, and so I also talked about Sick, Kevin Williamson's new slasher, in that video as well. And sometimes I do spoiler discussions of other movies that came out in the past, like for instance, the next one coming out on Patreon is a spoiler chat with me and my dad talking about Smile. But if that's not for you, then check out the rest of my social media linked down below. After taking 2 weeks off of YouTube, it's really good to be back, especially talking about a movie as wacky as this one. Huge congrats to Kyle Edward Ball. I'm so excited to see what you do next, but no pressure. Whatever you do, I'm sure that it'll make waves in our little world. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Remember to get that colonoscopy, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!